Time now for the Nick Hart Show, a special sports production of the Wabash Valley College Radio, TV, and Digital Media Department, presented by 89-1 The Bash and the Gibson Southern Titan Football Boosters, including A&B Logistics, LLC, A&T Concrete Supply, Absolute Custom Machine, LLC, Angermeyer Electric, Brian Stevens Homes, Davis Brothers, Daylight Land Management, Daywig Meats, Dillbeck Properties, Diversified Instruments, DuBois County Garage Doors, Duke Energy, ERA First Advantage, Rodney Langford, First Rate Real Estate, Kent Kleiman, Foster Construction, Fryman Land Service LLC, by Fort Branch Car Wash, Gady Oil, the grandparents of Owen O'Neill, Grassmaster Sod Farms, Hobstadt Family Dentistry LLC, Hobstadt Summerfest, Heritage Petroleum LLC, Hillside Gardens, HMC Gears, Image Inks, in memory of Darwin and Eric Callis, in memory of Zach Bailey, Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance Nathan Belote, Jackson Seed Service, Jarbo Tax Service, JJ's Concrete Construction LLC, JMCO Technologies, Johnson Commercial Mowing Incorporated, K&K Excavating Incorporated, Casey Fuquay State Farm Agent, Kathy Solomon Photography, Key Construction Incorporated, Kissel Wagner Survey LLC, by Kirkwood Family Dentistry, Little Titans Daycare, Little Miracles Learning Center, Lowry Ag Company LLC, by Marcus Jungan State Farm Insurance, Melcor Custom Cabinets, MyTech Systems, by Murphy's Stump and Grind LLC, National Vet Health, Owensville Auto Body, Parker Excavating, by Perfect Climate Heating, Air, and Plumbing, Cole Concrete Construction, Prodigy Mold and Tool Incorporated, Pro Rehab, Rawhide Golf Supplies LLC, Rooted in Him, Sandy's Pizza and Mini Storage, Shearer Monument Works, by Scotty's Lawn Equipment, by Senior Tequila, Solman Family Farms LLC, South Gibson Titan Lacrosse, Steve Faulkner Chevrolet, by Stodgel Funeral Home, by Tai Chow, The Brass Ring, Titan Construction, TYFL, the Titan Youth Football League, by United Fidelity Bank, Value Built Homes, Bernardo Construction, Vomac Truck Sales and Service Incorporated, by We Simply Clean LLC, and by Young's Auto Body. The Nick Hart Show, a special sports production of the Wabash Valley College Radio, TV, and Digital Media Department and 89.1 The Bash.
And we are back here on 89.1 The Bash with another episode of the Nick Hart Show. We are heading into the postseason. I'm Austin Harrelson, and as always, Coach Nick Hart. We're just going to jump right into things, and we're going to talk about last week's performance against Princeton. You wrapped up the regular season with another big win. What stood out to you most about your team's performance last Friday?
Thought it was a really clean game. In all three phases for us. Thought we executed really, really well and played with a lot of energy. I thought that's what was kind of missing the week before. Thought we came out with a lot of energy and played at a really high level.
Yeah, I am, just from the booth, you could see a difference with this team, especially just in that first quarter, even the first play of the game. You could just tell there was a little bit of excitement on the Gibson Southern sideline. And we just finished up the regular season. So heading into the postseason on a 7-game winning streak, what has impressed you the most about how your players have grown or adapted from week to week?
Yeah, I think, it's a group that, practices really, really well. It's not, we don't have to try and get them going at practice very often. They're excited to be out there. And so, I think when you have that, you just continue to improve each week. I think from, week one, to where we're at now, our attention to detail is a lot better. We're not making some of the silly mental mistakes that we were making early in the year, and I think those things are kind of combined together, right? They're two different things, but they kind of equal into one, and I think that's where we've really improved at as the years gone on.
From a coaching standpoint, what's something that you've learned about this team just throughout the regular season that maybe you didn't know before the season started?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have a good answer. I'll go a different way. This group is one of the most fun groups I've ever coached. They have a tremendous personality as a group, and they're fun to be around. But they really understand when it's time to go. And I think that's kind of a unique thing, and it's kind of hard to find that line. They, like I said earlier, they really enjoy practice. They're excited to be there. And that makes it a lot more fun for us as coaches. We're not trying to, get them going and, get them excited and get them focused. Like they take care of that part. And, we just coach. It's a tremendous group to be around. And, I'm having a lot of fun, with this group, as much fun as I've probably had with any group that we've had come through.
Last question for this part of the segment. How important is it, going back to this Princeton win, how important is it to close out the regular season on such a dominant win?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's important that we played and executed at a high level. I think the score of a game doesn't really matter to me. It's what we do, more kind of like worried about us type of thing. And I thought we executed at a really high level, and I think we have been for several weeks now. And we always talk about our goal being playing our best football when the tournament rolls around. And I hope that maybe we do have another level, but we're playing really, really well going into the tournament, and better than what we were, in the middle portion, the early portion of the year. So I think we continue to improve, and I think that's the most important thing.
I'm absolutely already ready to talk about this upcoming matchup against Vincennes Lincoln, but we got a couple more segments until then. We'll be right back here on the Nick Hart Show, here on 89.1 The Bash.
This special sports presentation of 89.1 The Bash is made possible by A&B Logistics LLC, A&T Concrete Supply, Absolute Custom Machine LLC, Angermeyer Electric, Brian Stevens Homes, Davis Brothers, Daylight Land Management, Daywig Meats, Dillbeck Properties, Diversified Instruments, Du Bois County Garage Doors, Duke Energy, ERA First Advantage Rodney Langford, First Rate Real Estate Kent Kleiman, Foster Construction, Ryman Land Service LLC, by Fort Branch Car Wash, Gady Oil, the grandparents of Owen O'Neill, Grassmaster Sod Farms, Hobstadt Family Dentistry LLC, Hobstadt Summerfest, Heritage Petroleum LLC, and by Hillside Gardens.
And we are back here on 89.1 The Bash with another episode of the Nick Hart Show. And Coach, kind of brought it up briefly. This team was able, the way that they came out this past game against Princeton, a completely different team is what it looked like. How has this team able to kind of look at last week's game against Boonville and say, like, okay, we understand what we got to do now? And how were they able to just kind of have that energy difference in this game?
Yeah, I know. I think last week, and I'm not one to make excuses, so I'm not, but you kind of look at why happened. We were on fall break. We didn't have, school, just kind of a different routine of a day. And I still didn't think, I still thought we played well, and I think Boonville is probably a little bit of an underrated team. I think they played really well, for a large portion of the Heritage Hills game this week. I think they're getting a lot better. And so, again, it wasn't like a score thing, or it was just kind of, it just felt flat, So, no, I think, just kind of getting back in our routine. I think, one thing we talked about is, the level of football team we are, we're not good enough to just kind of show up and go through the motions. Kind of leading into the tournament, wanted to make sure that we kind of got going back on that right path. And, our kids responded really well. I thought we had a really good week of practice, and then, came out with a lot of energy and executed at a really high level.
Is there a different approach when you're approaching playoff season compared to, let's say, I don't know, just a regular season game? Is there any way, do you approach practice differently, or is it just same old, same old?
Well, I sleep a lot less. No, it's same old, same old. I think, especially in football, because it's a week to week sport. You have one game every week on a Friday, and you kind of become a creature of habit of, okay, this is what we do on Mondays. Here's our Tuesday and Wednesday. Here's what we do on Thursday. And it's game day on Friday. And so, we've been practicing really well, through the course of the season. So, I think it would be a really silly time to, kind of start doing something different. No, everything pretty much stays the same. If we have our last freshman game on Thursday, the one difference we will do is at the end of practice on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, once our freshmen are done, if we win this week, we'll kind of let the young guys go at it, for a little bit at the end of practice, since they don't have games anymore. That's kind of like our, their game is at the end of practice, to kind of let those guys go at it a little bit. But no, as far as a preparation standpoint, or anything of that, it's same old, and you prepare as well as you can each week to try and, be ready to go on Friday night.
So there's been, and as of late specifically, there's been a little bit of an injury bug going around it on the offensive side of the ball. And regardless of the injuries, this team's been able to produce 40 plus points. They've been able to go out there and execute. I mean, how are you able to do that a week in, week out?
Yeah, well, one is, I think we're starting to get healthier. That's a good thing. But I think we've stayed healthy, knock on wood, on the offensive line. That's really important. And then we have some good depth at our skill positions where guys have stepped in and played really, really well. Elijah Ortiz at receiver, has been really good these last 3 weeks. The backs that have stepped in and played have done a great job. It's good to see Tucker get back out there and run the ball well on Friday. But yeah, I think it starts with the offensive line and Zach. They're kind of they've been the steady guys for us, and then guys have stepped in and played really well around them.
I'm ready to talk about this defense. We'll get to the defense when we get back here on 89-1 The Bash.
This special sports presentation of 89-1 The Bash is made possible by HMC Gears, Image Inks, in memory of Darwin and Eric Callis, in memory of Zach Bailey, Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance, Nathan Belote, Jackson Seed Service, Jarbo Tax Service, JJ's Concrete Construction LLC, JMCO Technologies, Johnson Commercial Mowing Incorporated, K&K Excavating Incorporated, Casey Fuquay State Farm Agent, Kathy Solomon Photography, P Construction Incorporated, Kissel Wagner Survey LLC, by Kirkwood Family Dentistry, Little Titans Daycare, Little Miracles Learning Center, Lowry Ag Company LLC, by Marcus Union State Farm Insurance, Melcor Custom Cabinets, MyTech Systems, by Murphy Stump and Grind LLC, National Vet Help, Owensville Auto Body, and by Parker Excavating.
And we are back here on 89-1 The Bash with another episode of the Nick Hart Show. And Coach, I feel like we just say the same thing every single week about this defense. They just keep They keep playing good football, and it feels like they're improving each and every week. What's been driving that improvement?
Yeah, I think I thought they played really well on Friday. I think the Pope kid is extremely explosive, and he doesn't need a lot of room to get going and pop a big one. And a couple times I kind of thought he was going to, and we did a really good job of running some alleys and keeping them from being big plays. But no, I think our defense is playing at a really high level. I think we've continued to get better on the back end as the season's gone along, and I mean, which makes sense. That's where we were, replacing the most guys. We had a lot back in the front seven, and we kind of had to, have a redo in the secondary. And I think as they've continued to go through the year, they've continued to get better and better.
When the defense is clicking, and they're going out there and just executing on every level, is that communication, is that energy, or is that just discipline, or is it just a combination of all three?
Yeah, you got to have all those things, in my opinion. Like energy is, I think, very important on defense, and being fast and physical, and being excited. And but none of that matters if you can't complete your assignment, and kind of vice versa. So I think those things go hand in hand on the defensive side.
As we're looking to Friday, first round of the playoffs. What kind of stands out about Vincennes Lincoln's offense that you're telling your defense all throughout this week?
Yeah, I think it's both sides of the ball, but I think they're really physical. The back is a really big kid. He's like 6'4", 210. I think they're really physical up front. So I think that's kind of just, I'm sure we'll talk about it more. But like just as a grand overall view, I think that's the thing that really sticks out to me for them on both sides of the ball. I know you asked about their offense, but I think they're an extremely physical football team in the way that they play. And that's kind of, we'll talk about it more, but that kind of leads to some of the scores that they've had. They want to run the football. They want to play defense. That's kind of who they are. It's a kind of a physical blue collar style of football.
Well, I kind of jumped the gun on that question talking about Vincent. So we're gonna take a quick break, but when we come back, we're gonna talk about a very anticipated matchup against Vincennes Lincoln. We'll be back here on 89.1 The Bash.
This special sports presentation of 89.1 The Bash is made possible by Perfect Climate Heating, Air, and Plumbing, Pole Concrete Construction, Prodigy Mold and Tool Incorporated, Pro Rehab, Rawhide Golf Supplies LLC, Rooted in Him, Sandy's Pizza and Mini Storage, Shearer Monument Works, by Scotty's Lawn Equipment, by Senior Tequila, Solomon Family Farms LLC, South Gibson Titan Lacrosse, Steve Faulkner Chevrolet, by Stodgel Funeral Home, by Tai Chow, The Brass Ring, Titan Construction, TYFL, the Titan Youth Football League, by United Fidelity Bank, Value Built Homes, Vernado Construction, Vomac Truck Sales and Service Incorporated, by We Simply Clean LLC, and by Young's Auto Body.
Alrighty, we are back here on 89.1 The Bash with another episode of the Nick Hart Show. Now, this is a very anticipated matchup. Fans have been waiting for another round at the playoffs. This has become a consistent thing where Gibson Southern coming in first round of the playoffs, it's exciting because more often than not, Gibson Southern's been able to come out on top of those games. And so how different does just this week feel around the program when and everybody knows it's win or go home?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there is a different feel. I think, you try and keep things as normal as you can, because at the end of the game, or at the end of the day, it's a football game, and that's what you have to be focused on. But I think you can always kind of feel the emotion and intensity and everything kind of ramp up this week, and then I think it kind of can calm back down a little bit. Like if you get a win, and then you're kind of going through like, okay, it's just it's a playoff game. I think you kind of get used to it, and it starts to settle down as you go through a little bit. But no, it's obviously a very exciting time, and everybody kind of starts fresh here, and everybody is excited to to get going, and again, it kind of goes back to your preparation, and all those things are going to become really important when you get to Friday.
What has been your main message to your team?
Yeah,
just all throughout this week. What's the main message?
Yeah, I mean, the first one was, I think if you look at Vincennes' record and make your assumption about how the game will go or what should happen, you're making a huge mistake. They're 3-6, but they have been in every single game. Memorial's the number one team in the state. It's 7-0 at halftime. It's 14-0 midway through the fourth quarter. And then, Memorial extends it to 21-0, and it kind of ends there. They lost by 8 to Jasper last week. You can go on and on through their losses and, how they were in the games. So they find a way to hang around. Obviously, they probably wish they had, got, to the finish line with some of those. But, man, they hang around. And I think, especially in the tournament, that's a dangerous thing because, even if they're just hanging around, it takes, one funny bounce or, one thing to go the other way. And, it's a whole different deal. So, that was the first message was, that this is a good football team. And our kids have responded very well to that with some of the preparation here early in the week. But to fans or anybody, I think looking at the records is a big mistake. It's a good football team that's hung with some really good football teams throughout the course of the year.
Yeah, I know we just kind of touched on it in the last segment, but kind of go into depth, kind of give the fans perspective of what we should expect offensively and defensively from this Vincennes squad.
Yeah, offensively, not only as I kind of just went on about them, their quarterback's gotten hurt a couple times throughout the course of the year. I think there's a chance he's back for our game, or at least we're preparing that way. I think they've had a freshman that stepped in and played really well for him. So whoever has taken the snaps, I think is very capable. The original starter is got a really strong arm and really can extend some plays in the passing game. Like I said, their back is a big kid. I think he's, without the roster in front of me, I think he's like 6'4", 210. Really physical kid. The way he runs the football, a real north-south runner. And, I think they're physical up front. They have a receiver, that makes a lot of big plays for him. So they present some challenges, to how you're going to defend them. And, I think the number one thing is you have to match their physicality, or, preferably be more physical than them. But I think that's kind of, them in a nutshell. I think they want to run the ball first, but are very capable in the passing game.
So you talk, I mean, this team's physical. Fans should know heading into this matchup, this is going to be a physical game. What do the Titans need to do early in this game to kind of set that tone, negate the physicality on their end, and carry that momentum throughout the rest of the ball game?
Yeah, I just think we have to, match that physicality, do what we do. I think we play really physically. We've been in some physical games this year. I thought that the Heritage Hills game was obviously very physical. I thought the Rochester game was a physical game, and so was Danville. So we've been in some physical, battles. Defensively, they're an odd front defense, and they do a great job. They fly to the football. If you look, there's kind of two games. It's kind of funny how their season's gone. Most of their games have been low scoring. And there's two games where they've given up a decent chunk of points, but those are the two games where they've scored a lot of points, and that's the Jasper game and the Wrights game. So, like I said, I think they're a team that just knows they're competitive. They know how to stay in games. And I think, one thing we kind of talked about before the Heritage Hills game, I think it will kind of be a little bit of this way. Like, I know our guys are going to be excited and be ready to play. Like, sometimes you can be a little too hyped up. It's kind of one of those, like, hey, let's take a breath and go play. Like, I know you're going to be excited. Like, let's take a breath. Let's make sure we're focused on what we need to focus on, and then let's go play.
So, last question, Coach. What's your biggest point of pride about this group heading into the postseason? Not even just this game, just the postseason in general, and what excites you the most about this next chapter for this Titans squad?
Yeah, I think my biggest point of pride with this group is just what they've done from last November to where we're at now. All the work that they've put in, how much they've bought in to the program, whether it's on the weight room or in the weight room, in the meeting room, on the field. They've gone above and beyond, what's been asked of them, and have really bought into each other and the program. And I think that's kind of shown in some of the close games. This group's not going to give up because they've worked so hard, and they've seen their teammates working so hard. They don't want to let each other down. I think it is. I'm not saying they all hang out, all weekend, but I think these guys really care about each other and are a true team. And so I'd say that's probably what I'm most proud of.
All righty. Well, Coach, we're all excited for this week's matchup. And, I'm ready to call postseason football again. It's been 3 years now. And funny enough, the last time I called postseason football matched up against Vincennes Lincoln in the first round of the playoffs. So hopefully we can score as many points as we did in that game, because it was a lot. So, Coach, it's always great talking to you. Hopefully I'm talking to you next week. Hopefully we're back on here.
Yeah, definitely.
All righty, Coach. Well, make sure to tune in to this week's postseason matchup on Friday. Make sure next week, hopefully with a win, tune back in to the Nick Hart Show here on 89.1 The Bash at 7 p.m. Coach, any final thoughts before the postseason?
Nope. Just hope we can get a lot of people up there Friday to support the boys, and should be an exciting game, and we're excited to get the tournament started.
Well, like I said, make sure to tune in to 89.1 The Bash this Friday for postseason football. I'm Austin Harrelson alongside Coach Nick Hart. Almost called you Scotty DeLong. I'm too used to being on the broadcast with Coach Nick Hart as a part of the Nick Hart Show. We will see you hopefully next Wednesday.
Thanks for listening to the Nick Hart Show on 89.1 The Bash. Brought to you by the Gibson Southern Football Boosters, including A&B Logistics, LLC, A&T Concrete Supply, Absolute Custom Machine, LLC, Angermeyer Electric, Brian Stevens Homes, Davis Brothers, Daylight Land Management, Daywig Meats, Dillback Properties, Diversified Instruments, Du Bois County Garage Doors, Duke Energy, ERA First Advantage, Rodney Langford, First Rate Real Estate, Kent Kleiman, Foster Construction, Ryman Land Service LLC, by Fort Branch Car Wash, Gady Oil, the grandparents of Owen O'Neill, Grassmaster Sod Farms, Hobstadt Family Dentistry LLC, Hobstadt Summerfest, Heritage Petroleum LLC, Hillside Gardens, HMC Gears, Image Inks, in memory of Darwin and Eric Callis, in memory of Zach Bailey, Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance, Nathan Belote, Jackson Seed Service, Jarbo Tax Service, JJ's Concrete Construction LLC, JMCO Technologies, Johnson Commercial Mowing Incorporated, K&K Excavating Incorporated, Casey Fuquay State Farm Agent, Kathy Solman Photography, P Construction Incorporated, Kissel Wagner Survey LLC, by Kirkwood Family Dentistry, Little Titans Daycare, Little Miracles Learning Center, Lowry Ag Company LLC, by Marcus Jungen State Farm Insurance, Melcor Custom Cabinets, MyTech Systems, by Murphy's Stump and Grind LLC, National Vet Help, Owensville Auto Body, Parker Excavating, by Perfect Climate Heating, Air and Plumbing, Pole Concrete Construction, Prodigy Mold and Tool Incorporated, Pro Rehab, Rawhide Golf Supplies LLC, Rooted in Him, Sandy's Pizza and Mini Storage, Shearer Monument Works, by Scotty's Lawn Equipment, by Senior Tequila, Solman Family Farms LLC, South Gibson Titan Lacrosse, Steve Faulkner Chevrolet, by Stodgel Funeral Home, by Tai Chow, The Brass Ring, Titan Construction, TYFL The Titan Youth Football League, by United Fidelity Bank, Value Built Homes, Bernardo Construction, Vomac Truck Sales and Service Incorporated, by We Simply Clean LLC, and by Young's Auto Body. The Nick Hart Show, a special sports production of the Wabash Valley College Radio, TV, and Digital Media Department, and 89.1 The Bash.